Hi, everyone. We're going to wait just a couple of minutes to see if a few more people are going to join us, and I think they are.
Was Vicky fine yesterday? Did you guys see her?
She seemed a little down.
She's like super down right now. She won't tell me what wine.
Tabitha, did you get my email?
Yes, I sent you one back.
Oh, okay. I didn't see it. Okay. Hi, everybody. Glad you're here. David is not. He's running a few minutes late. Let me just share my screen real quick. We'll go over the agenda. When David gets here, these are the things he's going to be talking about. Some details about the learning session that's coming up on the 11th. Then he's going to jump ahead to next year when we're doing the last PDSA, the last action phase. And he's going to talk about ideas for topics and possible directions in the future going forward after that, our evaluation, as well as your continuous quality improvement efforts. We're going to start today, though, with Dr. Fleming talking about the qualitative data analysis. We'll have a brief summary of the PDSA from the last of our agencies to present. That'll be PCCT. And then we're going to talk about some guidelines for the presentation at the Learning 7 session on the 11th. So Tabitha, if you would like to take it away.
Sure. So just to give a brief update, I know you all have been hearing about the photo voice process for our workforce development focus. We have met with the providers that you coordinated with us to have volunteer. Thank you so much for that support. They've been meeting with our research technicians to learn about the process and have been working about the last month on selecting photographs for those three prompts that we've talked about. We are scheduling now some focus groups. So those are going to be happening through the first week and a half-ish of June, where providers will get to meet with one another, those who are participating in this process, to share ideas. Some of them might have already landed on what they hope to be their final submission, but we wanted to have this opportunity where they can inspire each other to be more creative in how they're thinking about the prompts. So those focus groups are coming up. We're in the process of scheduling them. And then we will ask them following those focus groups to work on their final submissions. They'll have 1 month from that focus group to send those in, although they're welcome to send them in earlier. Any questions about that process?
Any
Once we
questions about the photo voice? Okay.
Once that
sorry.
process is complete, just to remind you all, we do plan to still perform our typical interview-based style qualitative analysis. So we will be recruiting both current and actually past providers to join us and have one-on-one conversations about workforce development and well-being. The guides are in development, but they're meant to be influenced by what we learn from Photo Voice. So we really want to make sure we are grounded in the perspective of our home visitors as we think about the questions that will be most meaningful. And then following those interviews, we will also have a brief survey. So those are just some things coming down the pipeline for our coordinated state evaluation work. Stay tuned. I'll talk more about this and a little bit about what we learned from the focus groups at the learning session.
Thank
Thanks
you,
all.
Tabitha. Any questions for Tabitha about the surveys that are going to be coming up? These will be just what we usually do with surveying in more depth with some people. All right, our fearless leader, Dr. Bard, has joined us, and so I'm going to turn it over to him to talk to us about the learning session on the 11th, and then jumping ahead to 2027 and talking about action phase 4.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen, and I'll spend most of the time talking about the phase 4 of our learning collaborative. I know we've talked about it a few times previously, but I wanted to go in a little bit greater depth today. As you'll see at the end, we will be inviting a vote essentially on a common change idea that we will all work on for that fourth and final phase of this workforce development learning collaborative. So let me share my screen. We have put together a few candidate options. These are not the only options available, but the ones that we thought were promising ideas. So let's see if this works. So a little bit of forecasting or foreshadowing, sorry, of what's ahead for us. And as Lisa just indicated, this is still a little bit a ways, but not that too far in the future. So in fact, this calendar year, you'll be working on that fourth and final PDSA. We'll meet in November for our 4th learning session. And you'll leave there with an idea in mind about how you want to implement this final phase. As you know, alongside the CQI work, we're doing evaluation work on the same topic, and it's one of the reasons why every time we get together for the learning session, we ask you to fill out some short surveys. We are collecting those both to monitor how collectively we're moving the needle on workforce development through the CQI endeavor, but also so that we can gauge and report back. I think of it, from the beginning stages as kind of basic epidemiology. Well, what does workforce development look like in home visiting? We don't have a lot of data on that, so we don't know, and certainly not from Oklahoma. But also now that we're involved in the CQI process, and we're looking at some other factors, the characteristics of the clients that you see and characteristics of your workforce that might be related to those survey measures that you fill out. Those squarely fall in our evaluation activity. So you see year 3 and 4 highlighted here. That'll be happening alongside this action phase 4 as we wrap up our work for this cohort of coordinated state evaluation, and also wrap up our work on this particular learning collaborative. I'm going to show you a timeline at the very end just to ground that a little bit more in the evaluation calendar. So again, as we've already talked about, we're moving towards this common change idea. I do want you to be to feel freedom here to adapt that common change idea to fit your particular agency, your particular program. So Please don't feel like you're being walked into a corner here. Although we're going to choose a common change idea, I think there's a lot of liberty in how we implement it. And I hope that that's the case. We want to see various approaches in how we adopt this change idea and implement it so that we can say a little bit about which approaches seem to be working best. We obviously need a change idea that's going to be feasible for all sites if we're all going to adopt that. So that's something that we want to take into account. And for now, at least, we're thinking about this as a majority rule proposition. So we will pose a vote to you later this summer, and certainly the majority vote will be our highest possible candidate. Given that third bullet, there may be some exceptions though. So if there's a strong justification for why a particular agency or program just simply cannot implement that change idea, we may have to move on to the second highest vote. Okay, this should definitely be no surprise. You heard about this on our kickoff learning session for this particular learning collaborative, and we've had a couple of agencies adopt this for their PDSAs in phase 1 and extended some of that work now in phase 2. All signs seem to point to this has been relatively effective, and why not share that knowledge and wealth with the others? So CSERT is top of my list in terms of possible change ideas.
You might talk a little bit about what it is.
Yeah, those who haven't gone through CSERT yet, it's not just a general self-care training. It was specifically designed to address secondary traumatic stress and burnout among helping professionals generally. It uses concepts drawn from established trauma and stress regulation science. We all saw a kickoff presentation from Dr. Galsky, our colleague here at OU, on the CSERT model way back in, I guess it was about a year ago, wasn't it? In our very first learning session for this collaborative. But for those who may not recall, the approach emphasizes emotion regulation and reducing rumination. There's some exercises for parasympathetic recovery. We did a couple of those in that kickoff session. And the ultimate objective here is to restore some meaning and joy in work. And that's a phrase that you'll hear the CSERT trainers and in the training repeated over and over again. I think it's important to point out that this particular model is evidence-informed, so there is evidence supporting its implementation, particularly in helping professions, and it's been recognized by the National Child Traumatic Stress Network as a promising practice. The evidence base is still developing. I think one of the reasons why it excites us as evaluators that, yes, there's evidence pointing in the right direction here. We even have some local folks who've adopted it with some success to date. But there's still a lot of lessons to be learned, particularly in how we implement it and maximize benefit. CSERT training, you can do this for everyone. So there is a provider and a supervised training that is offered. There are also refresher trainings for sites that have already participated. In terms of possible change idea adaptations, you might think about implementing the principles within your routine staffing, or you might think about implementing them in some other group format or even individual format. Peer support group sessions is another way that some agencies, not just in home visiting, have tried to put the CSERT concepts into practice. And there are plenty of other ways that you can adapt this particular intervention. You can just take pieces of it that you think are most pertinent to your workforce and then embed it however you see fit and however you see feasible. You'll get a chance to hear from at least one agency, I think two, about sort of their second phase of work with the CSERT model when we get together in just a couple of weeks for our next learning session. So feel free to also hit those groups up for insider information on what it's like to try to implement the CSERT model. We'll take questions at the end. I'm going to rifle through these 4 change ideas that we have prepared and then some final concluding comments. But the next one on the list is client storytelling. Another one that is definitely not brand new to you. We have been periodically visiting this idea, and at our last learning session, you got a chance to hear from 2 former clients share their stories back. I know I found that very impactful, and I've heard from many of you that you did as well. I am very pleased to report, this is sort of a sidebar conversation, that we'll have at least one more former client present at the learning session in June. The idea here is fairly simple, and certainly could use some polish if you choose to adopt this as the common change idea. But collecting stories from past and present clients, how does, can we develop a repository of these essentially for provider consumption that helps boost our workforce development and morale? The repository could end up being a lasting legacy of this particular collaborative. Possible change idea adaptations. Certainly the method of storytelling could vary from site to site, whether that's written, video, podcast, etc. You guys are such a creative group. I'm sure you can think of ways to archive these stories that are very compelling and very novel. So another exciting aspect of this that placed it near the top of our list. How the providers actually get access to these stories to boost their morale. So the frequency and then the method of that, I think there's a lot of room there for adaptation and many, many other ideas. There is some evidence, and we've talked about it just briefly in the past, supporting storytelling as a workforce wellness strategy. There is evidence that it does reduce stress and that these approaches, again, may restore meaning and professional purpose. There is some emerging evidence from home visiting and from healthcare settings that suggest hearing client narratives and long-term outcomes can strengthen empathy, reconnect providers to the impact of their work, and potentially buffer against any burnout or compassion fatigue. So again, we're excited about this. Lots of room for development. It's not one that has made headlines just yet, at least not in home visiting. So I think, again, an area where we can leave a lasting legacy, not just in Oklahoma, but for other home visiting agencies across the nation who are looking at the work that we're doing, particularly through the coordinated state evaluation cohorts, and wondering what they might want to adopt next in terms of enhancing their workforce development. Third on our list is mental health consultation, another one that you've heard us discuss in the past and one that you are intimately familiar with, I'm sure. There are many other states across the nation who have adopted mental health consultation as part of their workforce development toolkit, if you will. So we just broad strokes ideas here, thinking about access to mental health consultation as being the common change idea. Lots of adaptations potentially here. Do you want that do you want that to be client focused? Do you want it to be provider and supervisor focused, or do you want it to be both? The frequency and the method of interactions with consultation certainly is an area that can be manipulated across programs and agencies to see what works best. We don't really have a strong opinion on this, but I have been enamored with how states like Indiana and Alabama have been implementing these approaches of late. Both of those states have been using the consultants for the providers themselves and also for the families. There is some evidence to suggest that reflective consultation does improve provider capacity, responsiveness, and workforce support. And as I say, there's growing movement in home visiting and certainly in MIECHV states for adopting these models. It's a close cousin, if you will, to the mental health consultation, the broad mental health consultation model that we've just discussed, but early infant child mental health is another category here or subcategory that we could also pursue. Sort of a fairly narrow or more narrow flavor of this, focused on early child development and mental health concerns. And I know that consultation has been available to you in the past. Some of you have participated in that. But I would fit that into this same bucket and could be another area of variation there. Some of you may decide to focus on early childhood mental health, whereas others are more focused on provider mental health consultation. Okay, last one on our list is AI and paperwork streamlining. Again, one that we've touched on in the past, and very pleased that some of you have actually attempted to adopt this in various forms for your current PDSA. So we're excited about this, and I'm sure many of you are providers are. It can be a scary task, and I know that there's some legal and maybe even some ethical boundaries that we would have to be very cautious of. But the reward here seems so great that it ought not be ignored. We're very narrowly presenting this back as a possible way to reduce the documentation burden. That could be a reliance on large language models or generative AI, agentic AI. You choose your AI tool, but the objective here would be how can we streamline paperwork by using artificial intelligence? You would have to develop, as part of your PDSA, a process for embedding this into practice, very much like the programs have done for phase 1 work. I'm forgetting now if anybody's working on that for phase 2, but definitely we had at least one site adopt this for phase 1. Many, many ways, I think, to adapt here, certainly the type of AI that you use and how you incorporate it, or even perhaps the type of documentation that you're looking to streamline. This one probably has the least amount of scientific evidence to support it to date, certainly in home visiting, but I see that as a positive. Again, a way for us to create a lasting legacy here. Lots of eyeballs looking at your PDSAs across the nation right now, in part because of this coordinated state evaluation that's happening simultaneously. So I think this is a real way for you to make a lasting impact, not only locally, but for the home visiting workforce more broadly. There is growing evidence. A lot of this is coming out of healthcare, though, that AI can assist in documentation, and in doing so, reduce clinician burnout. No surprise there, right? And so do we really even have to ask the whys here? If anything, any method we can adopt that streamlines paperwork has got to be a good thing. Certainly if we can fit it within the ethical and the legal guidelines that are necessary. Okay, there are other change ideas I'm sure that you have on your mind that we would love to hear, and I'm going to open that up for a discussion on the floor next. But those are the 4 that we picked out that we thought were candidates that are both feasible and of high impact and rewarding to your agencies and sites. But you know best, so we want to hear from you, especially if your favorite topic did not make that list. And as I said, a vote will be forthcoming. So we will be happy in the learning session that's upcoming and in the monthly calls that precede that vote to give those other change ideas their fair shake, and with your assistance, perhaps provide some other promotion of those topics. Before I open it up to the floor, this is the timeline for the evaluation work. We are just about 3/4 of the way through our year 2 work. So we are closely approaching our 4th quarter. This is on the federal fiscal year, which, as you know, begins in October. So we're finalizing year 2, about to be in our year 3. And if you look down towards the well, I've got it highlighted here in blue. I was going to say the bottom. It's in the middle. So I changed my timeline a little bit. Implementing that Learning Collaborative wide strategy. Our plan was to kick that off in the 2nd quarter of year 3, and that'll extend all the way to the end of our year 4 activities. We'll continue to administer our pre and post surveys. So we're going to be very keenly interested in whether or not that common change idea has any differential impact on the workforce development subscales that we have been tracking since we started this work together. And of course, we'll share that back to you when we're all done. In terms of months, so we would be looking at, as I said before, building these 4th and final PDSAs in November of this year. Because of the holidays that follow, many of you, we imagine, won't begin that work won't begin that work in earnest until we come back in January, which is totally fine. And you'll have essentially 5 to close to 6 months to finalize that work as we approach the end of June 2027. Okay, comments and questions about the fourth and final CQI phase that's ahead. And anybody want to promote another change idea, you can do that by coming off mute, or you can put those in the chat.
Hey,
David,
Dr. Bard.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This is Sally with OKCC1.
Yeah, hi, Sally.
For the sites that have already done CSERT and the AI, how would they approach if those are the topics voted on?
Yeah, good question. We have imagined that you would take that work, extend it to the next phase. So thinking about this as continuous quality improvement, what's next on the continuum there to embed this in practice and perhaps get even more bang for the buck. If
Okay,
it's AI and paperwork streamlining, unless you've mastered that for all types of documentation, perhaps you move on to the next area of documentation, just by way of example. And for those who've been doing CSERT, we've had two groups now, and you're one of them, that have done two phases of CSERT work. So we're hopeful that that can be a renewed focus and maybe a slight alteration to how you've implemented it in the past. But even if you try to maintain the benefits that you've received to date, that would be acceptable.
okay, thank you.
Dr. Bab, so you are thinking that all the contractors, all the sites are going to be working on exactly the same change idea? So if we decide that it's going to be CERT, everybody's going to be doing CERT?
That's correct. Now,
But you say in one of your slides that you can like modify that and adapt it to your site. So
Exactly.
we were thinking about another training, which is fun. It's called Facilitating Attuned Interactions. And it's also to promote like parent engagement and communication and collaboration between the providers and the parents. Can we have that adaptation if we want to do that? We already are going to have that fun training in August. And so we were just thinking on doing that, like taking advantage of that we are already doing that.
Yeah, I like that, Ariana. If you already have another model that is essentially attempting to accomplish the same objectives, just for sake of comprehensiveness, I'd like to sort of put those side by side before I give a definite yes. But I think that absolutely that would be allowed.
I'm gonna put the information on the chat.
Thank you. Okay, and then I see in the chat I've got, let's see, I missed it, survey vote on the change. I haven't set a date on that yet, Natalia, and sometime this summer we definitely want to vote. I want to give this certainly some attention during the learning session next month, and then at least one more monthly call. So in July, maybe we vote in the July meeting. More likely, I think it's going to be August. I need to
David,
take temperature in this room and in the room in Tulsa. So that's my hesitation there. I want to make sure everybody understands the task, has had ample time to think through the possibilities before we vote.
David, if the CSERT training is done, who covers the cost?
Yeah, that's the other thing that we have to iron out here. So I don't know if our state agency colleagues are on the line or not, but that's a definite barrier for something like CSERT that we're hoping potentially they could help us with. So that's the other reason to delay the vote. I don't have that confirmed yet, but we would like for potentially the grant funding to pick up the cost of that training. There are also some possibilities of getting a deep discount from our colleagues here at OU because of some other funding that they're pursuing. Yeah, I see the link, Ariana. Thank you. Clicking on that now.
Lisa, I guess I kind of have the same question with mental health consultation as well, like where that funding comes from. PCCT already does that with our own funding, but if other places don't already have that funding in place, where that would come from.
Yep, same thing, Whitney. All four of those, or whichever change idea we choose, if there's a cost to it, we're hoping that we can get some grant funding to cover it. Ideally, that would be the MIECHV funds. And I'm not springing that on the agency staff for the first time for those that are on, but we haven't narrowed down and which change idea yet or the exact cost of it. So these are things we'll definitely work out before the vote. And if it turns out to be too costly, then we'll just scratch that one off the list. But we've done some preliminary estimates. I think it's going to be feasible, certainly for the four that I put on the list today. But again, we welcome other ideas.
I see in the chat that Children First does the fan training that we were given the link to, the facilitating attuned interactions. And so I think it's, I lost track of the thread, but I think it was Cap Tulsa was planning on doing that. Is that correct? For the next PDSA?
Yes, that was our plan.
Yeah, okay.
Great.
All right, good. And Stella says in the chat that PCCT has done both of these kinds of training, and maybe they could compare the two.
That's a great group then for us to consult.
Or we could compare the two, you know, if
I'm going to give a shortened version of this at the learning session in 2 weeks. So I'll do my homework in between now and then and compare CSERT to FAN. But I just quickly looked at the initial graphic and the link that Ariana put in the chat. And yeah, I think that these are, there's enough overlap here of these two that I think we could avail them both. And yeah, I agree, Stella, that might be an interesting twist that we're comparing two different versions of the training, sort of strengths and weaknesses of both simultaneously.
any other ideas that you'd like to throw into the mix about the possible collective approach to the last PDSA in 2027? It just has to be under the umbrella of workforce development. Well, let that percolate. And if something else comes to you, you can drop us an email. You can approach us at the learning session or a monthly call or a rounding call. Just anytime you want to bring it up, we'd be happy to hear about it. And we're eager to hear your input. David, can we go on to hearing from PCCT about their PDSA? They'll be the last one to describe the PDSA before the learning session.
Absolutely.
All right, PCCT.
Good morning.
Hi there, Stacy.
Hello. I'm trying to get things going here. Can you guys see? Okay.
Yep, we can see you.
All right. So Whitney's going to chime in with me and help assist as needed. So for our SMART aim, again, we are focusing on integrating wellness in the workplace to address the burnout. And so our SMART aim is to reduce home visiting scores on the burnout assessment tool. So it's a short 13-question survey that we have the providers complete. And so we wanted them to complete that and reduce the burnout by 20% during the action phase by implementing a wellness room. So we've started a wellness room at our office that is utilized just for purposes of, like, if they just need to get away from, you know, our office space is very open. And so if they need to do a private phone call, or if we have fidgets in there, we have sand, we have bubbles to pop, like just different things that they can utilize to kind of, you know, coloring pages, things to help kind of calm and regulate themselves. Mindfulness activities during team meetings, group reflective supervision at the end of each team meeting, and encouraging home visitors to engage in self-care for at least 15 minutes per week. And that is while on the clock, not like in the evenings or on the weekends, things like that. That is implementing self-care throughout the day. We think that stress in home visitors' personal lives may affect the burnout scores. So we also ask them to rate their current personal life stress on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 being no personal life stress and 10 being the highest, or experiencing worst. And so we can't turn those off. If we have personal things going on in our life, we can't just say, okay, I'm not going to think about that. We're not going to even let that affect how we go. And then you're going in and listening to clients who have hard things and are dealing with things. And so how does that affect burnout? So we had them score that as well during these 3 cycles. So we did one in January, and then we did one in March, and then we did one, our final one was in May. So outcome measures. And so we measured each of these surveys. And then we also, like I said, had them rate their stress levels during that time and identify how many minutes per week that they're utilizing self-care. We also created car self-care kits for them to utilize in their car to help with the initial being intentional about using self-care. So, many times home visitors go from one visit to the next, and that could be very difficult when you've just left a home visit where the mom, discloses domestic violence situation, or if there was, harm to the child and you had to make a DHS referral or anything like that. And then just get in your car and go to the next visit like nothing ever happened. And so we provided car care kits for them to utilize that included different various items such as mints, little inspirational cards. Whitney was really the driver on that. Whitney, do you want to share what else was in the car care kits?
Sure. And we kind of combined with the mint thing too. Sorry, I'm hearing an echo. The mint thing too. So Stacy mentioned that we did mindfulness moments, like mindfulness activities in every team meeting. So we introduced how to use this stuff during mindful moments in our team meetings so that they would know what to do with the kit in their car. And so for the mint, it's like a 5 senses type thing. Like, what does the mint feel like in your mouth? What does it taste like? What smells are you feeling or having? And so that was kind of the mint thing. And then we also had little affirmation cards that they could read through, some scalp massagers, the Nido stress ball, fidgets, um,
Oils, like
so-
essential oils.
mhm, essential oil rollers. And then one thing that with summer approaching that our staff had told us about is sometimes by the time they get to their next visit, their car hasn't even had time to cool down yet, like for the AC to kick all the way on. So we also got spray bottles for them to fill with water so they can spritz themselves for kind of like a cool down moment, or they could fill it like with their favorite scent that helps relax them. But that is also just like another on the clock way to do self-care, even when they're not at the office, to use the wellness room.
Yeah. And so we really did focus on ways to implement self-care, like I said, not like throughout the day, like not, we have like popsicles in the freezer for them to grab at any time, like especially like now when it's starting, the temperatures are starting, when they're going from visit to visit. And so just little things that they can do throughout the day. And then, so we are going to track that by scoring our surveys and comparing those 3 different measurements. We're also tracking how many group reflective supervisions we've had, how many attended those group reflection sessions, how many mindfulness activities. So we always start our group and team meetings with mindfulness activity. And then we also are tracking like staff turnover. And then if there was any cancellations in the reflective supervision. And so that is what we will be presenting on.
That's great. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing your presentation. Thank you. We're also going to talk about the learning session coming up. Before I turn it back over to David, let me just share my screen real quick. We're going to have your presentations in the morning, and this is the order of presentation that I'm planning. So just to give you a heads up, so you're not taken by surprise on that day. So I'll have Yolanda's group go first, and then Amy's group will go next, and then we'll have LCDA, and then Cap Tulsa. And then after we have a break and we have some dolphin training, you'll have to come to see what that's about. Then we'll have Parent Promise, PCCT, and then our 2C1 programs. So I just wanted you to know where we were. All right, David, back over to you.
I don't think I have anything formalized on the agenda, do
I? We have a brief review of presentation guidelines for upcoming learning session.
Okay, yeah. So this is my usual spiel right before we get back together for a learning session, but we're giving freedom here, and you guys have been so creative with it. This methodology, I think, is here to stay. So you certainly have lots of liberty in how you present back your results. My only plea with everyone, and this is not new, right, is I want to see some data. We've, of course, got your analysts attached at the hip with every one of these PDSA projects. So you should have a dashboard from them. I've had a chance to actually look at most of those, I think all of them, in various forms, not all of them complete just yet, but because some data was still coming in this month. But I'm anxious to see the final results from this PDSA, and just want to make sure that we highlight those numeric findings as well from the great work that you've been doing. You saw on the agenda that Lisa flashed on the screen, perhaps, that I'm going to kick us off with a quick welcome and do a past, present, and future of workforce development. I'm going to hit some of the high notes from the phase 1 dashboards and the phase 2 dashboards that I've had a chance to review. And then I'm going to quickly touch on those 4 change ideas and that 4th and final phase of this CQI network before we end, so that all of your providers get to hear the same messaging that you heard today. I think that's it. All of you.
Does anybody have any questions about their presentations? What's expected? We need to be sure to see the results of your outcome measure, your process measure, and your disruptor measures.
Yeah, and I always find it helps to ground the conversation in your original SMART aim. I'm sure this is information you already have prepared, and even if you just verbalize it, your change theory diagram, so that we can see how your outcome, process, and disruptor measure sort of fit into the change theory, into that process of implementing a change idea and then outputting some benefit. That's my humble plea. Okay. Excited about seeing you all in Tulsa again in just a couple of weeks. And I know from Lisa and from many of the analysts that you have some exciting stories to share back. As I mentioned, we have a client who's going to join us and share their story about the impact of home visiting on their lives. So you won't want to miss that either. Yeah,
she's going to actually start our day before David starts talking.
Oh, that's right. We rearranged so that she can start it off. That's right. Yeah.
Any questions about the learning session? Any questions about anything? Anybody have any good jokes? All right. Thank you all so much for your time. Y'all have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.